On to matters rail now, and the Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa is set to reopen part of the Pretoria Pienaarspoort corridor. Repairs to the line have been underway for a while now, and for more on this, we're joined by Prasa spokesperson Andiswa Makanda. No doubt a very important and positive step within Prasa to ensure that passengers across the country, well, particularly here in this part, are getting the services that are absolutely necessary at the moment. And a very good morning to you, by the way. Perhaps just give us a sense of the importance of this particular reopening of this particular rail line.
Good morning, Ruhiwa, and good morning to your viewers. I think this is an important milestone for Prasa as we are trying to rebuild a lot of the infrastructure that was distracted during the lockdown because of theft and vandalism. We're talking about thousands of kilometers of rail infrastructure that was decimated, and we have been trying to rebuild and recover a lot of our services corridor by corridor. So this is an important milestone that we bring back the Garangoa-Develt line that connects to Mabopane corridor. This follows after we resumed services on the Pienaarspoort to Pretoria line. So this is a very important moment for us and the country and commuters who've been waiting for rail services, who could not handle the cost of living, including the cost of transportation. And, Metro Rail, which is operated by Prasa, is offering transport at very reasonable prices because of consumers who have economically strapped because of the economic situation we are facing in the country.
Talk to us about the security issues that have existed. You've spoken about theft and vandalism that have plagued Prasa. Even before COVID, we had these incidents. So what is Prasa's approach to security and ensuring that whatever has been refurbished is going to maintain the way that it is, and that passengers will not be disappointed in any form when there are breakdowns?
Yeah, definitely. The issue of theft and vandalism is a widespread societal issue, not only affecting Prasa, but also other state-owned entities such as Eskom, Transnet, City Power, just to name a few. And as you correctly point out, that yes, before COVID-19, there was a little bit of theft and vandalism here and there. But when the previous management cancelled the security contracts, that meant that a lot of our rail infrastructure was left unguarded because there were no boots on the ground to protect the rail infrastructure. And so that's why we experienced escalated incidences of theft and vandalism to the point of total destruction of the rail infrastructure. And so now, because we've brought back security, we do have security contracts put in place safeguarding the rail infrastructure. We're not experiencing theft and vandalism, mainly because we are running trains in some sections. We have deployed security. We are guarding the rail infrastructure. Prasa also has an integrated security plan working with the law enforcement agencies, including the SAPS, and so forth. And so we've implemented that integrated security plan in corridors such as Mabopane to Pretoria. And since we implemented that plan, we haven't experienced any theft and vandalism of the rail infrastructure. We're rolling it out across the country. We're making sure that we have boots on the ground. We also have several programs that will ensure that rail infrastructure is protected. One thing that you should also know, that unlike other countries where their rail systems is a closed system, ours is an open rail system, meaning that it's exposed to a lot of vulnerabilities. And so we do have a rolling program where we're going to close off some of the rail network, especially in the hotspot areas. We're also bringing in, as part of our security strategy, high technology in terms of safeguarding the rail infrastructure. So there's a lot that's happening to safeguard the rail infrastructure to make sure that we do not go back to what happened in the past 2 years.
Now, the minister had indicated earlier that there are 10 corridors that have been prioritized by Prasa to get back up and running. So in terms of what's coming next for those who rely on the rail agency, what are we going to see from Prasa in terms of refurbishments and the reopening of corridors?
Yes, as Prasa strategy, we took a phased-in approach in fixing the rail infrastructure because we're talking about thousands of kilometers of rail infrastructure that was distracted. A lot of corridors across the country were not operational. And there's a lot of work that goes into recovering rail infrastructure. It's not a matter of tweaking here and there. There's a lot of engineering work that needs to go into recovering the distracted rail infrastructure, including the stations that were vandalized. So it's something that cannot happen overnight. Also, we don't want to create a demand surge on the markets when we're fixing the rail infrastructure, which is why we took this phased-in approach to go corridor by corridor in fixing the rail infrastructure. So for this financial year, we targeted 10 priority corridors, and it's safe to say that we are 50% recovered those 10 corridors that we identified for this financial year. And for the next financial year, we'll be identifying more corridors to recover. But just to give a sense to the viewers and commuters out there what they can expect. We did close down the Johannesburg to Naledi line in May earlier this year for a complete revamp and repair of the infrastructure. So in the next couple of, before the end of the financial year, we should have the Naledi to Johannesburg line in Soweto running. We've also targeting before the end of the financial year to get to reopen the Lirala to Johannesburg line, which is the Tembisa area. We're also looking at Pretoria to Calfontaine, which is an important route in that it connects Johannesburg to Pretoria. So we're looking at recovering that line. Also, Kwamash in KZN, we're looking at the Durban to Kwamashu, Durban to Umlazi as one of the corridors that we want to recover by the end of the financial year. And then next year, we'll look at other corridors. I mean, commuters have been asking for the Davidson route, for example, to be reopened, Radfontein areas. So some of these are some of the corridors that we want to look into as the next batch of corridors to reopen in the next financial year. So there's a lot that's happening. If you look at the demand for the services, we're seeing the numbers coming back because people are relying on the trains. And what we are doing is we want to make sure that we recover all the corridors so that metro rail, passenger rail can be indeed the backbone of public transport.
And then just a final thought from you, Andiswa. Prasa was one of those state-owned entities that were hollowed out by state capture and the malfeasance that happened at management levels in different parts of thereof. Just an assurance to the viewers and your commuters that Prasa is still on its cleanup trail, and those that have been found wanting are being held accountable by the Passenger Rail Agency. We do know there have been suspensions, there have been those that have been booted out of Prasa, but that you're still hard at work to clean it up.
Definitely, there's a lot of cleanup that's going on at Prasa. Issues of malfeasance and governance issues are some of the things that are a priority for the Prasa board and management. So there've been a lot of, excuse me, there've been a lot of activities that are happening in terms of forensic investigations that have been instituted, planned consequence management that's happening, plans to recover some of the money that was looted. So there's a lot of that's happening behind the scenes. You know that there was the Auditor General's findings that were recommended and escalated to the SIU for further investigation. SIU did the investigation. They had some recommendations that we are currently implementing. There were 44 employees that the SIU identified for consequence management and disciplinary hearings. We've got currently about 33 active cases that we are looking into, where we are ensuring that we implement the recommendations of the SIU report. We want to also close the loopholes that were found, to close of corruption, to ensure that even our supply chain management processes tighten up and stand scrutiny, so that we avoid incidences of malfeasance and corruption.
Thank you very much for that detailed update. That is Passenger Rail Agency of South Africa spokesperson Andiswa Makanda there, speaking about that newly opened or refurbished corridor and the others that are going to be opened up in different parts of the country for commuters to once again rely on affordable modes of transportation.